Hey guys, Nananki here, bringing you another round of Kerbal Space Program. Last time on Nananki's Adventures in Kerbal Space Program, we went ahead and made a ship to go to Duna, consisting of basically one big fuel tank attached to 3 atomic rockets, and a landing section, which once we had an orbit around Duna, we went ahead and detached. Of course, we did burn up most of the fuel in the main drive section getting to Duna, but I figured we'd have enough to come home. So we made more than one attempt at landing. I'll admit the first one went a little poorly, but the second one went very, very smoothly. I was very happy about that. So, having landed on Duna, there wasn't really much to do, except go back to Kerbin, because we didn't really have enough fuel to go to the moon Ike. But luckily, for our intrepid adventurers, the Kerbin World Government, or perhaps CASA, the Kerbin Agency for Space Exploration, decided that their trip to Duna was very popular in the public eye, and it deemed more funding, and that funding was going to come in the way of a huge supply ship sent out to Duna after them in order to provide them with enough fuel to go visit Ike, the sole orbiting body of Duna, its sole moon. I figured simple is usually better, so I started out simple, just a multitude of mainsails to lift the whole thing, and amazingly, it held together pretty well, so I decided to wire them up with some fuel cross-feed so that the outer ones burn off their fuel first while feeding the inner ones, and for some reason that makes it go much, much farther. I guess rocket science, right? There was, in fact, an intermediary design stage here where it had canards on it, the wings, to help stabilize it on the way up, but I realized I didn't need them. It didn't need any stabilizing on the way up. By the time it started to rotate, it was usually all the way out of the atmosphere, and on top of that, it was adding more drag, and I wasn't getting quite as high or as fast at the same expenditure of fuel, and I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna lose the canards. With this many mainsails, their gimbaling is enough to correct anything. So once the first few stages are shed, it's safe to roll and start aiming at about a 45-degree angle, and then eventually end up at a 90-degree angle, and eventually end up with just the 2 mainsails there on the end, which was not actually by design. I had intended, from the way I had led the fuel cross feeds, for them all to run out simultaneously, but I had more fuel in them at the end for some reason, just those 2, and I was like, oh, it looks kind of cool at least. Got something out of it. So, after we burn those off, of course, we then separate from those, and the last 3 really don't have too much rotation to them once I nullified the rotation they did have, which took a little bit of RCS fuel, but they carry quite a lot, as I make reference to, I think, several times, having had issues with RCS while playing about at docking and so forth, and that's usually the limiting factor if you have a really rough time docking and you're not getting things lined up, you're out of RCS, and then you're like, oh, I'm done, I'm out of RCS. That's a bust. But more to the point, I got my orbit square, and I got to thinking, you know, hey, I'm ready to head to Duna now, I'm ready to do my burn, but why should I only take one of these when I have a docking port on it that would allow me to take 2? It's like the US military. Why build one thing when you can build 2? So I sent another one up, and I then proceed to dock. The rest of this commentary is live. Oh yeah, I think we've got docking about to be imminent right here. Maybe? Oh, come on, yo. Oh, come on. Oh, docking is such a fickle thing. So very fickle. It's also possible that my craft is just too big. My craft is too big. My craft is too big. Yep, there we go. Yep, there. Come on. Nope. Yep, come on. Pretty much. Yes! Success. Fantastic. And thusly do we have this cockamamie looking thing that is going to be our super resupply vessel. That is right, it is unmanned. It is just a mountain of fuel, a mountain of RCS, as you see on the resources tab. 2,600 units of monopropellant. Liquid fuel, up to 15,000 units of liquid fuel and 18,000 oxidizer, which right now there's not a fuel tank available that doesn't have a balanced mix of liquid fuel to oxidizer, but I'm sure in future developments that'll be a thing that players will have to be concerned about. And now I'm ready to head to Duna, pretty much. In fact, I actually was a little bit late because obviously I left at the ideal time with the earlier mission, and I did a few things between then and now, and unfortunately, I was past the point where I could make an easy trip to Duna without using an absurd amount of Delta V, so I had to cycle time forward a year, so the astronauts on Duna have been there for a year, and hopefully they have had time to do some good science while they've been there, and hopefully they haven't gotten too sick of each other or killed anybody yet. And it's very strange that this is not drawing fuel from this. It's drawing it from over here. I just filled it back up from this one. But I'm gonna do so again because I noticed that it will keep going as it drains, which is just awfully handy. But theoretically, when these get to 1/3, I will transfer all the fuel from the outer ones to the middle one and decouple the outer ones and drop that additional mass. And then when this runs out, I'll have just this one. And same deal with those side ones, and just progressively staging it to maximize fuel efficiency as best I can. Once these get down to 960, it'll be 1/3. I'll go ahead and do that operation. We might finish this burn before that, though. I'd like to get the end of the burn right. I'm working under the assumption that the guidance computer actually keeps track of your relative position to your intended destination and updates accordingly. It seems to. I mean, this might be a false assumption to work under, but, you know, it seems to. You know, at point 4 is probably pretty darn close. It seems like we've got an encounter happening. Let's go ahead and eliminate that so we can see a little bit more clearly. We do not quite have an encounter yet. Okay. We will work from here. Yeah, that's the starting point right there. And there was an encounter. Where was it? There we are. Oop, go back. Tiny bit. There you have it. 20 seconds away, and we need to spin like a 180. Wonderful. Let's just waste some monopropellant, shall we? And to fix the fact that we're going to fly way past it, I think you might call it an exploit that you stop rotating when you increase time. Yeah, like that. Oh, I'm under acceleration. There we are. That was almost horrifying. Yeah, this is a very, very small burn. Look at this adjustment I need to make. Come on, get centered, would you? I really would like this to be correct. Thank you. So we need just a little bit more delta V. Like a fraction of a hair of delta V. Go to the map screen, give this a tiny bit of thrust. I'm not even gonna look at this maneuver node because I already know what I need to do. I need to burn prograde. Exactly prograde, and just tiny bit. Yep, see? Tiny bit. There you go. Tiny bit. Good enough. The game says it's going to happen, I'm going to believe it. And we will have quite a distance from Duna when we get there, but you know what? We'll fix that when we get there. Now, for more trivial matters, fuel. Let's see, I want this side to be all the way full. So first things first. Fuel, go over there. Oh, thank you. Means those are utterly empty. Alright, I don't trust any staging at this point. I think I'm just gonna manually decouple. And then, just like go away from that a little bit. That's good enough. I just don't want to clip it or bump it or anything. See the atomic engines destroyed by some shard of metal tearing across them. Yeah, that's not close at all. That's fine, though. Or perfectly fine. Even though I did RCS thrust a tiny bit, could I have messed up my encounter with Duna from doing that? I mean, when we're dealing with, you know, 0.3 meters a second making a difference, I'm reasonably certain anything could. They're going to basically go to Duna with us. They're going to be chasing us to Duna. It's kind of funny. I didn't consider that when doing my calculations. And they'll get progressively farther away. See what that tiny little RCS thrust did to this trajectory? They're going to Duna. We're going past the damn thing, probably. I was reading MUN with the little symbols over it is actually pronounced moon. Some odd way of doing it, but that is the case. Yep, we still got an interaction there with Duna. Fantastic. That's what I'm talking about. Trying to do this with as little fuel as possible to maintain as much as possible for interesting mission type related stuff. Now that we are out of that gravity well, we can probably do a more precise adjustment. Thank goodness for our time machine. Without 100,000 times time acceleration, these missions would be intolerable. 10,000 times would be not acceptable. 10 times slower than this. Be like, alright, I'm gonna go get some coffee. I'll be back in 20 minutes. Not knowing where to look usually makes it hard to spot, but I think that's it right there. Yep, that's it. Leaving time acceleration on makes it much easier to spot because it's flickering as its moon goes around it. As the moon transits between us and the planet, it obscures it and makes a shadow, and that causes a flickering light. It's actually one of the ways we spot extrasolar planets, is by utilizing the fact that the star's intensity, luminosity, dips with regular intervals as the planet passes it. And we're going back to the screen here so we can see when the interaction will begin. Because looking at the planet is all well and good, and I like doing that as well, but I would like also to know when the game is technically putting me into its sphere of influence, whether or not I can see it, so that I can begin making adjustments and so forth at the earliest possible interval. Yep, here we go. Coming up to it now. I have a feeling trying to let this game, or trying to make this game do real, you know, multi-body calculus would be just asking too much. Alright, what's this look like? Well, it's gonna pass us as it stands right now. That's not good. We're gonna have a lot of fuel just hanging out around Duna. Kind of expands our possibilities. It's so fortunate that the Kerbal world government decided that spaceflight was a valuable endeavor and decided to additionally fund this mission for the fine Kerbals on the surface whose names escape me at the moment. But they will totally have a trip to Icon store. Yeah, see how it's 138 now? Whereas it was like 12 when we were a bazillion kilometers away. Space distances are just so extreme that, I mean, and this game has a really small solar system. Like, the planets are they have the right mass to match, like, Kerbin matches Earth, but its size is not right. It's like way smaller in volume than it should be. Like, it must be made of some incredibly dense material. We'll leave that thing with its fuel sucking out of that side, even though I didn't intend for that to happen. It kind of was an unintended side effect. I'm okay with it because it means that it'll have a little bit more weight at the base and won't be incredibly top-heavy. And it's already incredibly top-heavy, but it'll be less incredibly top-heavy. Now, I would like to get captured without having to use absurd amounts of delta V, which means doing a planet dive into the atmosphere. This game does not have atmospheric heat, re-entry heat, friction incorporated yet. It has G-forces generated by resistance, but it does not have heat friction generated. So you don't have to worry about positioning a heat shield properly or any such things like that. Yeah, there we go. Pretty much, because it'll kick it up a tiny bit when we get there. That's what I'm thinking. Alright. Not bad. Yep, there we go. Orbit. Capture. Fantastic. No sweat. Of course, it's 9 miles away, but I mean, 6 million meters. But it'll get closer. That was worrisome. Good. I'm glad that we got out of that. I don't want to deal with an icon counter. Well, now that I've got both the new refueling / drive section in orbit with mountains of fuel, I was thinking I would meet it up with the interplanetary drive, even if it took a lot of fuel to change the orbit. I figured it'd be worth it, but I didn't realize this thing only has this much fuel left, you know, 900 units of liquid fuel. And granted, that's not nothing, that's really a decent amount, but it's pretty well tapped out for monopropellant, so I'd have to dock with the other half, which means I'd have to be moving all that mass around, which would use a ton of monopropellant, so that would be a losing proposition on that front, and we'd only gain a little bit of fuel. I'd be willing to wager we're going to burn more fuel than that just to change orbits. I mean, it might be something to do just as an exercise, because they don't ever actually intersect. They're just completely crazy. So this might just, you know, we might just deorbit this into Duna because it's not doing any good, quite frankly, for us. Our other option is just a much better vessel as far as fuel is concerned. I mean, the other one doesn't even have 1,000 left. This one still has 10,000. And I'm not going to bother burning it all up trying to dock with that other half. Alright, that's pretty much close enough, by my reckoning. Which is just visually like, yeah, sure, looks good. We'll just take off and try to match the orbit there of ST 2.1, which will require taking off and going to the right as opposed to the left, which will be the opposite rotation of the planet, which will mean more fuel, but this is a tiny planet, so I think we'll be okay on that front. Fuel is not going to be a problem after we get docked. Whoa, goodness gracious, we are cooking in the sun. Look at that, that's as far up as I can zoom, huh? As you go in, it starts glowing more and more. It's like some bloom effect is turned on. Good lord. Crew cab seems relatively well shaded. We'll keep that closed for liftoff. These guys have been very patient, Adam, Ablo, and Babve. Alright, let's go ahead and go for this thing that we're doing. Let's see, to the right would be 90 degrees, I guess, right? Sure. Okay. Is that 90 degrees relative to anything? Yeah, sure. We'll just assume 90 degrees is going to work. Let's go up first, then we'll worry about it. In 3, 2, 1, liftoff. Geared up. I like that we landed high enough up on the pole that we weren't very deep in the atmosphere. We weren't as deep as it gets, at least. That's good. I don't like overheating, though. Just on general principle. Okay, that's really already enough of an apoapsis to be heading out of the atmosphere, so let's get over to 90 degrees, which would be down over here. Should probably get that ladder put up as well. Zoom in a bit so I can click that thing. Yeah, there we go. We gotta be professional about this. Can't have a ladder hanging. Throttled up, shall we? Getting to an orbital velocity. Wait, we're going to the left. That's the wrong way. Oh, goodness. So it's 180 degrees. Shucks. And, well, we wasted a little bit of fuel. Hopefully, we will be forgiven. When I say that, I mean by, you know, the game. Let's find out, shall we? Well, you know, I could transfer fuel from the middle section to the outer ones. Because fuel won't be an issue for our little craft once we get caught up with the bigger craft, and I would like to go visit Ike and have landing legs to do it with. Having this middle section able to decouple was like a last-ditch effort to get into orbit if I was going to get stuck. Like, just to save their lives, pretty much. But I don't think we're in that situation right now. I think if we had to, we could always maneuver over with the much, much heavier and inefficient craft. That's why I'd rather do the docking maneuvers with this thing, because it's much smaller. Be way less difficult to move it over to where I need it. Well, at least it's balanced. That's true. There's no reason not to use this engine as well, honestly. It'll run out of fuel first, probably, but might as well, frankly. It always assumes you're going to go full throttle, and I don't like to do that, so we'll wait till there's minus 18 seconds, and then we'll just go ahead and start. Then, like so. Oh, that was about Mr. Cameraman. I appreciate it. Yeah, see, this thing doesn't weigh very much, so we get that burn done real easily. I felt like it was probably a good idea to speed up the whole orbital rendezvous sequence, because trying to match up orbits is just kind of time-consuming. Okay, let's give that a shot then. Plenty of monopropellant, at least. At least, you know, relatively speaking, it shouldn't take much to move this thing around. The SAS can work for attitude control, because there's not enough mass to impede it. Nice change from the giant behemoth that is our refueling vessel. Same deal, basically start a little bit early here. Gonna run out of fuel in the middle engine. Oh well. We don't need it. We don't need no middle engine. Honestly, we're so close at this point on orbit. Oh, here we go. I went a little too far. That's okay. Yeah, look at that. See, now the adjustments are going to be minuscule. They aren't going to be too bad. Oh yeah, there you go. 7 kilometers. Pretty good. Give that a shot. .7. I think we're going to work with that. That looks good to me. Oh, and the burn is now. Even better. No problem. There you go. That's pretty much dead on, I'd say. Okay, what am I looking at now? We have matched orbits, and we're going to pass within 1.3 kilometers. Very nice, very nice. Let's make this happen, shall we? It's only 14 kilometers away now. There's Ike. The gigantic moon of Ike. It's freaking huge, considering the size of Duna. I mean, Earth's Mars. Our solar system, you know, Mars, has 2 moons, but they're very, very small. They are most likely captured asteroids. Deimos and Phobos. It's like smaller than Mimas. Put things in perspective. Very small. Oh yes, chase camera usually makes this whole process a little bit easier to manage. Oh yeah, we're heading right for it. So fast, in fact, that we need to do a slight amount of retro burning. Pretty much now. Like, right now. Now what I'm planning on doing here is just getting like right up next to this thing and then going and decoupling the extra one, using it to fuel this up, and then attaching to the triple set that's already completely full, and we will have just oodles of fuel. And all will be well with the world. Use a little bit of RCS here to try to move my approach just slightly closer. No qualms whatsoever with this velocity for a majority of the approach. It might be a little bit slower, but I can just speed up the recording later, like this. Well, let's go ahead and get the other one lined up. Go ahead and get this docking bay open. Turn on our SAS to stop moving. I'm going to slow this down a bit more, though. Give ourselves a little bit more time. There we go. That'll work. That'll do. That'll do. Undock. Whoa, that's disconcerting. It's like, here it comes. Whoa, I'm not on chase mode. Camera, don't you do that to me. I do not appreciate it. Not one iota. Okay. Now, that docking bay is already open. This one's open too. Now it's our target. Still making our nice, leisurely approach. Just how I like it. Oh, here we go. Whoa, slow it down. There you go. That's pretty decent. Pretty decent indeed. Oh, come on. Give me that. That was perfect! You gotta give me that one. Thank you, game. Thank you. That's probably my smoothest docking yet. Very pleased with that. We're still basically right next to this guy. If it bumps into us, you know what? That's not going to be too big of a problem, I don't think. It's not going to bump us very hard. Let's just move up a little bit, though. I'd rather not bump it if we can avoid it. There. That's a tiny, tiny, tiny offset of velocity. We should be able to catch it no problem here in a moment after we finish transferring fuel. Alright, let's go ahead and undock and head over to the other side. Or to the other behemoth in space. This is we tap that one out for fuel. The only way we could deorbit it is RCS. It might have enough, to be completely honest with you. It might have enough. But that will have to wait. We'll worry about that later. First things first. Undock. And then we need to figure out where the hell the other one went. It's still like on top of us. Oop, there it was. I saw it. There, okay. That'll be totally acceptable to catch that. Alright, first things first, let's go ahead and actually head toward the thing. See how I go up when I thrust? It's because my fuel tanks aren't balanced. 3 of them have more than the other 3. But, you know what, that's okay. 1 meter a second is enough to work with. This thing is so much more maneuverable. I just feel like it might be easier to just drift past it and then turn. We're not going to hit it, are we? We might. Yeah, there we go. I hit in a few times. Just to be on the safe side. It freaked me out, what can I say? Pretty sure that docking port's already open since, you know, it was just docked to something a few minutes ago. That's pretty close, to be honest. I mean, maybe up a tiny bit. Yeah, that's looking pretty darn good to me. Put this in there a little bit, tiny bit faster, not by much though. Look at this from another perspective. Go up a bit more. Alright, like that. Yes. Magnetic force activate! Dock me, please. Please. I beg of you. I beg of you. Magnetic force, please magically make me dock. Yes! Hooray! Magnetic force. I love it. If those things weren't magnetized, I don't think you could possibly make that kind of perfect alignment by hand. It's bad enough just getting them lined up well enough, you know? Now I just need to make these roughly equivalent. Let's do these one at a time, shall we? That's close. Oh, that's really close. That's like perfect. I'm never gonna get that close ever again on any of these. That's pretty close. We're gonna go with that as being close enough. Anyway, it doesn't matter. They're balanced. That's the point. And this is completely full, which is also good. Now we just need to deactivate all these engines. Is that the other vessel? Probably. Yeah, that's what that was. Okay. Well, we'll just put those up there where they won't be in my way. We won't worry about separators, and we'll click that stuff manually. I just don't trust the stages when you're docked. I just don't trust them at all. But yep, there's our next target. There's the whole reason for this refueling mission, is to go to Ike. I realized I don't need parachutes to land on a an airless moon. I was like, well, hell, let's go to Ike then. Let's take a look at things, shall we? First of all, here's our not so elliptical as our other orbit. There's our somewhat worthless interplanetary drive, and basically on top of us, only slightly far away, drifting ever farther by the moment, is the empty fuel, mostly empty fuel. It's empty of real fuel, it just has some RCS left in it. I brought a lot of RCS. I really didn't want to deal with not having RCS. Let's go ahead and activate all these engines. Okay, that's good. That's all 9. They're the only active engines that are actually engines. So, let's go ahead and plot a course for Ike. Well, I've once again failed to fully appreciate the time involved in space travel, and have over 3 hours of footage, which I've managed to cut 2 hours of it down to this last 30 minutes. So, not too bad. Ratio 4:1. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I do greatly appreciate it. As always, next time we will be investigating the moon Ike, and then hopefully also finishing up with our mission to Duna and getting back safely. So, do join me for that, and I will catch you guys next time. Peace.